Hi there, my name is Rick Chisney, and I decided to make this little video because I was, quite frankly, inspired by something I saw online recently. We're living in a really rough year, this 2020, and the reason I wanted to come on here is I wanted to share some good news. We keep hearing about all the bad stuff that's happening in this world, and, well, I just thought it would be a good idea to maybe do like a little impromptu news reporting type thing where I could read some very positive and beautiful news stories using a news reporter voice, where you can be both entertained and informed at the same time. Ha 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 ha. So, without further ado, I'm going to start reading some random world news stories that you more than likely have not heard about, because the mainstream media in the United States insist on talking about other things, for obvious reasons. Now, what I'm about to do is read for you some news stories that I found by looking at a website called informationisbeautiful.net. Our top story tonight: there are already more than 34,000 kilometers of plastic roads in India. Plastic roads are now the default option for Indian cities, putting waste to good use, creating jobs, improving the environment. Each of India's 1.3 billion people uses around 11 kilograms of plastic a year. The bulk of it ends up in the sea. But fishermen are now encouraged to bring plastic to shore. It's fed into a shredder and converted into material for road building. 34,000 kilometers of plastic roads in India. That's got to make you happy. Our next story: biologists in Finland develop a vaccine to protect bees. Bees are now crucial, well, they've always been crucial, for biodiversity and food security. The disease, known as foul brood, poses a real risk to them. But this vaccine, Prime Bee, really works. It also proves we can immunize insects from infection, make populations more resilient, help them fight the diseases which in turn threaten us. Our next story. This is going to be popular. There have never been more female CEOs in the Fortune 500. The Fortune 500 ranks the USA's largest companies. In 2015, there were more CEOs called John on the list than women. But that's changing slowly. The 2020 list includes 37 female CEOs, including the heads of Gap, UPS, and General Motors. It still only represents 7.5% of the total. But it's a symbol of lessening discrimination, new leadership styles, and better business. Our next story: more than 300 hospitals in the United States have formed their own non-profit drug company to counter big pharmacy price hikes. Generic drugs should be cheaper than their branded equivalent, but the U.S. system isn't working. Price gouging has affected availability. Shortages are common. This new company, Civica RX, was formed in response to the crisis. The CEO vowed to work without pay, to put patients before profit, to ensure that life-saving drugs are available and affordable. Our next story: fewer children are dying of pneumonia. That's right, fewer children are dying of pneumonia. 1990, there were 6,410 daily deaths. But that's dwindled down in 2017 to 2,216. It's been called the ultimate disease of poverty. The lower a country's income, the higher the child mortality rate from pneumonia. Bangladesh, Kenya, and Uganda are fighting back. How? Tackling malnutrition, improving sanitation and medical care, cutting pollution, indoors and out, and it's working. And now, let's talk about the Southeast Asian toilet revolution. Open defecation is declining, improving sanitation, and decreasing disease. In 2000, 63% of those living in Southeast Asia were not using toilets due to lack of access or cultural restrictions, and that has dwindled as of 2017 down to 21%. In the past 10 years, over 240 million South Asians have abandoned open defecation. This hasn't been easy. It's not just about building new facilities. It's about changing social practices and challenging taboos. Change is now sweeping across India, Pakistan, and Nepal. Better hygiene equals better health for everyone. Global investment in renewable energy is rising. We're changing the way the world is powered forever. The last decade saw 3 times more investment in renewables than the previous one. Solar, wind, and hydro are becoming the cheapest option for new generation. Billions of units of emission, TONNES. I'm not going to say tons because that's not how you spell tons. Unless you're from like England or something. I don't know the specifics there, but billions of TONNES of emissions will be avoided, helping to fight the climate crisis. Basically, in 2005, you had Japan, the United States, China, Europe, and other countries. The total investment was $88 billion, and that's actually increased amongst all these countries to $334 billion. A new device uses ocean forces to clean plastic from our seas, from giant objects to microplastics. Okay, here's that word again, TONNES. Let's just say tons. 8 million tons of plastic ends up in the sea every year. At this rate, there will be more plastic than fish in the oceans by 2050. Let me repeat that. At the rate that plastic is being thrown into the sea every year, at this rate, which is 8 million tons ending up in the sea every year, if we continue down this trend, there will be more garbage in the ocean than fish by the year 2050. Using trawlers to collect it will be hugely expensive. So how about a machine that operates by itself? The Ocean Cleanup Project is a self-contained system in the Pacific. It's tackling an island of waste 3 times the size of France, collecting plastic to be brought back to shore and recycled. Now that is one very, very impressive contraption. Notice I'm throwing in some of my own wording. I'm not exactly reading it verbatim anymore. Whatever, you get the point. Next news story from Beautiful News Daily, i.e. informationisbeautiful.net. Our next story, 86 nations agreed to curb aviation emissions. If aviation were a country, its emissions would be the 6th largest in the world. With passenger numbers set to double in the next 20 years, the industry has been forced to act. CORSIA is a UN deal which carbon offsets international flights. If an airline's emissions increase, they have to buy credits from emission-reducing sectors to cancel them out. The pilot phase begins next year. Fingers crossed, it should help reduce the environmental impact of global travel. That's just snazzy. La-da-da, la-da-da, la-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. South Africa is defending its rhinos. In 2015, 1,175 were killed by poachers. In 2019, that number was reduced to 594. Rhino horns have no medical properties. They're literally made from the same stuff as fingernails. But the belief that they cure cancer and boost virility has caused poaching to escalate. South Africa, home to 80% of the world's rhinos, took action. It began awareness campaigns, relocated animals, tackled poachers with new enforcement techniques. Meanwhile, false medicinal claims were exposed, demand across Asia fell, prices dropped, and today more rhinos are living in peace. Our next story: home methane digesters can replace inefficient cook stoves. Methane, also known as natural gas, is more potent greenhouse gas than CO2, but it can be harnessed for good. Industrial, agricultural, and domestic organic waste can be decomposed in the digester. This creates biogas for energy, fertilizer for the land. In Germany, it's done on an industrial scale to feed the grid. In Asia, digesters are changing the way families cook and heat their homes, reducing demand for fossil fuels, cutting pollution indoors and out. After 23 months, the 2018 Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo has ended. The 2018 Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo was the world's second biggest. War and political instability made a bad situation even worse. Over 2,000 people died. Ebola generally kills 2/3 of those who contract it. But new treatments, including antivirals, were key to ending the recent outbreak. They'll save even more lives in the future. Yay! Woohoo! So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it there, and I hope you enjoyed this. Maybe I'll do another thing like this sometime.